We are a large firm headquartered out of Boston, but we have offices all around the country, 4 in Florida, 1 in Dallas, 3 in California, and a New York office. So we do about $3.6 billion a year and really are in all the sectors: commercial, healthcare, life science, education, gaming, transportation. So all those types of things. So we gather data from a lot of different places. I'll say about the current conditions, it's a bubble right now that's going on in the market. And where we're seeing this is really it's a supply and demand issue. And from steel to lumber, having a lot of trouble getting the supply, which is pumping things up. So the factors are, number one is that shortage. We also do see a bit of a labor shortage places. As Blair mentioned, that issue down in Texas, that there are subcontractors where they're busy. So trying to pull from the hall, if you're in downtown Boston or whatever, it's tough. There is certainly a short supply. And then it's a busy market. So one of the things that we were talking on, I spoke on a few of these back in April and May. And what we thought was going to happen is we were going to see a real sharp drop off in projects and projects getting halted. And the reality is not a lot of that happened in the Northeast. All the major institutions kept doing the projects that they were working on. And so a few jobs dropped away, but not a lot. And so subcontractors who back then numbers were leveling off, were even going down slightly because subcontractors were looking to put more backlog onto their books. That actually didn't really come to fruition, and now there's even more work out there. So now people were already busy and they're even busier. And what that has to do with market conditions, when subcontractors aren't hungry for work, they add profit to the numbers. So not only are we seeing increases in material, but we're seeing increases in the profit that they're putting in there. And so the prices are going up very substantially. To give you just a couple more examples of that, a couple of steel jobs we did recently that we bid and then rebid. So we were doing a warehouse project with bar joists and we rebid it 6 weeks later. It went up 36%, and that's in just about 6 weeks' time. The lead time also went up. So that's the other issue, is this supply and demand getting material. Lead time went from 4 months to 8 months. We're also a large high-rise project in Boston, $45 million steel package, went up on the rebid $9 million. That's a 20% increase. So you can see these numbers. We just rebid a pile job. We went from 49 cents a pound to 75. And that's 50% increase. Elevators, we have a consultants telling us they're seeing 20 to 47% over budget on the jobs that they've looked at recently. So that's a lot of materials. But then when you look at the overall jobs, certain things aren't doing that. So overall, I think we've seen about a 6 to 8% increase in 3 months. That's fairly unprecedented in the market. And I'll talk about what we think is going to happen in a second. But another example of that is we bid a large high school project recently, and that's looking at the moment like it's somewhere in the 5 to 6% over budget, which given this market is actually not so bad. It's also a very complicated project. So that's the other thing. When subs are busy and they're bidding work, they tend to like jobs that are straightforward. So this is a complicated, phased project over a long period of time. They shy away, so you get less bid coverage. So that's also interesting to see how that works out as well. So again, we're looking at about 6 to 8% in the last 3 months. Our prediction is that at some point supply will match up with demand and you'll get more supply into the market. And that's because plants are going to reopen with COVID. Plants that shut down, steel mills and plants for lumber, those are going to reopen. They're going to get workers back, and we'll actually have that supply meet up with demand. The problem is we don't know when that's going to happen. Could it be this summer? Maybe it's the fall. But at some point, the 6 to 8% bubble is going to drop back down. Now, that's going to drop back down. It won't go all the way. Let's say it stays at 2%. But on the other hand, all the busy market is going to push prices up. So you've got to be careful on when that's going to happen. So I don't know that we'll really go down that 2%, but that will help stave off the 4 to 5 to 6% increase. So if you ask me, what would I do for a job a year from now? I would say a year from now, maybe only 2 to 3%, and that's because of the drop and then the increase. But if you're looking forward, I do think we're going to see a continued escalation. I will tell you on the institutional side, and if you include what I would call science and tech commercial jobs. A lot of developers are switching over to build, especially in the Boston area, and we see that in the California market and the New Jersey market. They're switching over. Every commercial job is switching over to lab. And if you add that in, I will tell you this, we are looking to hire probably 30 to 40 people for projects we know will be coming to fruition in a year to 2 years. So it's a lot of the commercial jobs out there right now that are built in core shell. All that is going to get filled up with lab tenants. So really need to look at that very seriously.